everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the JKL Media Podcast. We're working our way through the science fiction series 2015, 12 Monkeys, and we're down to it now. We're into season 4. We're going to be talking about episodes 6, 7, 8, and 9, which are Die Glocke, Daughters, Demons, and 1 Minute More. And then after this podcast, we only have 2 episodes left, which are the beginning, part 1 and 2, and that sounds like it's basically a movie. So that's going to be fantastic to cover that in our next podcast. But before we get there, we have to work our way through these episodes. And as usual, we've reestablished our tethers. And so our timelines with my co-hosts are once again, and I have with me, as usual, Karen, the podcast mom. How you doing, Karen?
Hello, that tether, it took a while to get
Yes, it
hooked
did.
up.
Yeah, we lost our lock for a while, but we
Dying
established it.
to watch the last 2 episodes.
Yes, and our other podcast partner, is he the Popcast Pop? I don't know. Jesse.
Hello, Karen. Hello, Lou.
He would have been the ingenue,
Yeah.
but
I am so excited to talk these 4 episodes. I think it's going to be interesting because I've rewatched them 2 or 3 times because of our delays, and I also did not watch them this past week. I think between the 3 of us, we're going to remember everything that's going on.
I watched them yesterday. So
perfect.
Great. Karen's our anchor. See, that's why she's
Karen
called the podcast mom.
Absolutely, yes.
I watched them every Saturday. I wasn't sure until evening last week whether we were gonna talk or not on Sunday, so I went ahead and rewatched them.
Okay, great.
And I rewatched them yesterday. So
excellent. In general, I think we were in agreement that the previous 4 episodes were probably for the first time we felt the emotional through line faltered a little bit. But boy, with these next 4 episodes, they really brought it back to bear. And there's some great stuff going on in here. Do we want to go episode by episode, or do we want to talk character arcs? How do you want to work this?
I think we might want to talk Die Glocke by itself.
Okay.
It is the most different. I'm sorry, my cat wants to be on the podcast, apparently.
Oh, that's okay.
I thought this was a self-contained story. It ended at the end of the episode, that part of it. And I think it's fascinating in terms of like real life history. To have seen it. I mentioned that how long will it be before they talk about killing Hitler? Is there an over under about it?
Yeah.
And it was actually later in the episode than I thought it would be, where Jennifer mentions it. And then they actually do it.
Yes.
Which I think was cool. But it does show that unlike the butterfly effect kind of theory, it was more like fate does what fate does. That Himmler took over and everything was the same. So I thought it was fascinating in a lot of different respects. And we got Jennifer singing You and Your Hand by Pink, which was awesome. I actually listened to the original song afterwards, and she did a really good job of approximating it. It was fantastic. And to see Der Fuhrer kind of tapping his foot along was great.
Yeah.
And I love that it was ingenious how each of them played their part, and they each had a specific role, and how they undertook those roles was great. And of course we got the return of
it's pretty amazing that we've gone this deep into the series, and the show to this point has really never broached the idea of including a historical figure into the series, and they still did it in a very discreet way, because we never got a full face-on view of Hitler. It was always from the back or whatnot. I admire the restraint in doing so, and as you mentioned, this was like a throwback episode, going back to the World War II thing and the French resistance and everything. And of course, things get complicated because there's French resistance fighters and they're trying to blow up the castle and all that. So there was a lot of stuff going on in this episode. Jesse, what are your thoughts on this one?
I loved this episode. In fact, I loved all 4 episodes. I had the same feeling we talked about last time, that they were good, but they just weren't the kind of level. And I said, you can't stay at 11 all the time. So and then when we got back to these, I went, oh my goodness, they took a little step backwards to go forward. We get the wonderful I have such a crush on Amanda Scholl, and we get to see her in Va-Va-Voom.
Right? Lingerie.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It felt a little gratuitous, but
I've called
He doesn't care.
red-blooded
Okay.
males. What can we say?
It's like me and Marcus. I don't care what he's doing.
Yeah, and Jennifer continues to steal the show. Some great lines when she was like, "Yeah, you left me stranded in France. I had to learn French."
Yeah,
You know?
PTSD.
Yeah, I recorded an album that you never listened to, Blank Holes. I thought was great. And by the way, on a side note, the actress who played Jennifer was a couple weeks ago on Emily Hampshire was on Celebrity Jeopardy.
Oh,
awesome.
And she was great in it. I can't remember if she won. I want to think she might have, but she was so good in it. And they did not mention 12 Monkeys when they were going through her resume, and I was very unhappy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you guys picked up, I did not, that maybe Deacon, the winking, right? And singing the John Hughes theme song from that. And everyone going, wait a minute, you're good now? I've always been good, you jerks. I loved Todd Stashwick. This little self-contained, fighting Hitler, doing all the things, having Jones push on this is my home, and everything was I just loved everything about this episode.
Yeah, I love that when he does that little thing to Jennifer and Jennifer does it back. And
yeah.
I love their relationship.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Anything else about this episode, or shall we move on?
Yeah, I think we can move on. I do agree. It was a nice standalone. How do we fix this? And we got they were able to get the supposed weapon and they changed it into something else, right? They swapped it out. People did. So it did serve the greater arc, but it was just a little wonderful, one self-contained, fun time travel.
Right.
I do have to say, why didn't they just tell him what to do instead of dropping hints everywhere?
Yeah.
It's like a trail of breadcrumbs. I get that probably they just didn't want the bad guys to get it, but
yeah,
it's very weird.
Okay, then we move to Daughters, and in this one, Joan sends Hannah back to 2007 on a personal mission, and this starts a mini arc for the remainder of the season that turns out to be really powerful. And I was really happy to see the actor who plays Anna given some more to do, and the payoff that we get from this eventually really makes those earlier scenes in previous episodes with her and Cole take on a whole new meaning. Jesse, what are your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I love the idea that they sent her back, and we had established, right, that there are two daughters, right? There is what's her face? Why am I drawing a blank? It's been too long since we talked. Olivia's daughter and Katrina's daughter, right?
Emma.
And
Hannah.
Emma and Hannah. And I love the storyline with them, how they combined go. We get a surprise reveal a couple episodes later. And I think they did a good job of at least from my end, hiding that reveal. Yeah, so this was it, and I like the idea that Hannah did get a normal life for a while, right? Because you think about it, she was raised by Jennifer's army, and then she's been with our time traveling fortress, and to actually spend some time just in a normal situation, it was just really lovely, and I liked everything about that.
Cool. Karen.
Yeah, I gotta say that whole storyline between Emma and Hannah, that was so impactful. And honestly, I did not see the culmination coming. when I thought it was going to be Emma, spoiler alert, that's Cole's mother, sorry. I just watched South Park. He's Cartman's mother and father. But I thought it was Emma and I was going to get mad. And then to realize that it wasn't, when he drives back up and says that she died and that, hey, you're whatever her name was supposed to be. I can't remember. Marion? Was that it? Says Marion. And she takes the mantle. She knows that she's going to have to be Cole's mother. That part was heart-wrenching. And then the letter she writes to Cole and she reads it in a voiceover. Wow. I got super choked up and teary all 3 times that I watched this episode. I got choked up watching it. And that storyline was so crazy good. And then realizing that he's been working with his grandmother this whole time. Yeah. And that it really adds another layer to those characters that Hannah didn't know until now that she was going to be Cole's mother. But it's like in those several years where she lived a normal life and had a child with Cole's father and had this relationship, she was markedly changed. And I also loved the scene where the 3 of them are sitting around a table and they're telling Hannah that she's going to end up dying for Cole and letting her make her own decision. The fact that Hannah does it, that shows how solidly her belief in this whole mission is and how important Cole is. And I just love that. And also they talk about For Whom the Bell Tolls, which is, I don't know if you guys have read it. John Donne wrote it. The meaning of it is, and I'll read this little snippet. In Donne's essay, For Whom Does the Bell Toll, is the imaginary question of a man who hears a funeral bell and asks about the person who has died. Donne's answer to this question is that because none of us stands alone in the world, each human death affects all of us. Every funeral bell, therefore, tolls for thee. And that, even just that little story beat means so much. This was just, we had that whole, in the last 4 episodes, Cassie wasn't acting like Cassie, Deacon wasn't acting like Deacon. It was just a letdown. And for these 4 episodes, ramping it up, I would say to 15, not just 11. I loved these. I loved them going back to medieval times, them having these connections with other people. And I guess we'll talk about the medieval thing in a minute, but wow, just so good.
Yeah.
The other thing is I love the difference between Olivia and Emma and Katerina and Hannah's relationship, right? Olivia just thinks of Emma as a tool. And similar to, and Olivia was not very kind to her mother. We saw that where her mother was actually starting to worry and to think about, is this the right situation? And Olivia is totally focused on whatever her end goal is. And if I have any quibble, it's that I don't understand why Olivia is so interested in the Red Forest. I see other people wanting their version of a heaven where you never lose anyone, but it almost gets her, she wants it because she's supposed to want it.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And I think it's a little bit of a power trip. And I also noticed that there's a serious theme of nature versus nurture, where Olivia's been with the Army of the 12 Monkeys for her entire life. And so she is detached from reality, whereas her daughter, her mother, Hannah, they're all examples of, they had a life that was normal, at least for a brief period of time. Emma worked for the Joneses. Her mother had a life where she had a child and all that. And Hannah, of course, we see that she goes back in time and lives quite a few years in the real world, quote unquote. And it really shows how that turns you into a different person in this universe.
For sure. And I'll just reiterate, I loved how the episode handled the misdirect of making you believe for up until the last 3/4 of the episode that Emma was the mother instead of Hannah. I thought that was really well done. And again, it just really adds to those earlier scenes that Hannah and Cole had together. And now when if you ever rewatch those episodes, you're gonna look at them in an entirely different way, which is really cool. All right, so let's move on to demons, and this one is tragic in another way because of what happens to one character, and the whole going back into medieval times is pretty cool in itself. And we revisit the scene with the monks, or whatever you want to call them, which was interesting, and we got to see that play out in a slightly different manner. But yeah, it all seems like they've taken that artifact that they got from the previous episodes, and now they're finally going to use it. And you're assuming that it's going to correct the problem that they've been trying to fix all along, but it doesn't. Karen, what did you think about demons? And I know that you're going to be really torn up about one thing that happened in this episode.
Definitely. Yeah, near the end, I was quite upset. Although I would like to think, I'm keeping in mind that in time travel shows, when they wrap things up, and they knew they were going to wrap things up in these last 2 episodes, some things are reversed. So I take a little bit of comfort in that. I loved almost everything about that medieval episode. I like that old Jennifer comes back to new Jennifer, calls her egg, which was awesome. And through them talking to each other, we keep seeing flashes of that knife being Deacon giving her his knife. And we realize that once that happens, there's some significance to it. It shows the bond between the two characters. And him saying, I'm going to want that back, was made even more poignant when he was dispatched later in the episode, and in such a horrible and brutal way. And we see Jennifer's reaction to it. It was just, it was wrenching. And then her also planting that seed that they need to fix the vest, the time travel vest, and that, hey, we know why they do it, so Cole can survive at the last minute and also rescue his compatriots. And the fact that Olivia is just so incredibly evil to completely destroy that sanctuary. And I think it's notable that it was a sanctuary that was turned into a demon thing, and then again made into a sanctuary that was destroyed by a demon thing, which doesn't allow them to go back and save Deacon. And it was, I hate that. I will tell you, I hate that they killed Deacon so nastily. And also the actor who plays Nicodemus, I don't remember his name, but man, Ben Cross, he is so good in this. The small part that he has, and whoever the dude is that plays the primary that's repressing his primariness and ends up being Olivia's henchman there at the end, he's also very good in this. He reminded me of the Da Vinci Code guy who flails himself in order to redeem himself. I just, that storyline back in England was great. And also the costuming, those leather outfits, I loved them. As someone who kind of digs that cosplay type thing, that was awesome. It was almost like a steampunky sort of version of those outfits. So yeah, there was a lot to love in that episode. And then right at the end, stabbed me right in the heart. Yeah.
Jesse.
Yeah. I hated Deacon being killed. Absolutely. And I do think he gave a hero's death. And I think if this show had been on further than basic cable, he probably would have thrown in a MF bomb or something to them as in defiance.
To incite them, yeah.
Yeah, but and he was willing to sacrifice himself for this team. Absolutely no doubt. And I love the difference of Cole. I've got to go back and get Deacon. Like in the past, like it's too late. Yep. You know, they've left him to die too many times. And this time Cole is obviously he helps Cassie and Jennifer and Jones, but he was going back. And then because Olivia's destroying that, you can't. I hope we get in a world of reset him back somehow. But I think I've loved that actor. He was easy one of the best parts of the final season of Picard. And him on this has truly been that scene. And once again, it turned him around as a character when they tried to kill him. And when he came back bloodied and good on y'all.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done too.
Yeah.
Anyone got any whiskey?
Huge respect. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just, I love the fact, I don't love that he died, but I love that there's consequences in this show. And I love that they gave him a good death, like in terms of Klingon, right? Today is a good day to die. I love that.
Is he the Sean Bean of Terry Metalis projects? Is he always going to die?
Hey, there you go. Wow, I love that. That is a great thought. Yeah, I really was happy with this. I agree with you. Seeing the different side of all these different, we've seen these images before I do get tired head sometimes of how everything, because like old Jennifer's, hey, remember you've jumped back to before I died, right? So it can be very confusing. And when we get to next episode where they're all sitting around the fire, you're like, okay, when is this exactly? But yeah, it was just a glorious, and I agree with you. They are setting up this in such a strong way.
Yeah, I have high hopes. I will say, you have, what is it, tired head or what you said, but he does a good job of where you might be confused for a minute. He really does set the tone of where they're supposed to be. It wasn't long before you realize they were in 2043 and I'm going to say this before we go on, but these four, I can't stress it enough that these 4 episodes are really setting up something big. And I hope to God I'm not disappointed. Please.
Yeah.
You're not what?
I'm not disappointed. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to touch on a point that Jesse made about Deacon. I'm still wondering how the show is going to pull off the finale and satisfy fans, bringing back characters like Ramsey. And I'm really surprised that he hasn't popped up at all. Maybe he'll show up in the final 2 episodes. And Deacon, these are the 2 characters that you want to come back and have a happy ending. Whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know. And we'll get into it. I'll discuss it a little bit more after we talk about the next episode. But I'm really curious to see what Cole is going to do, because he's been put through the ringer in these 4 episodes in various ways. And probably never more so than in the episode 9, 1 minute more, when he finds out who Hannah is, but then it's such a brief moment for him to try to process that. Jesse, what were your thoughts on 1 minute more?
I was so sad, and I love the moral quandary. We started this to save people, and now then they're trying to say that we have to. Time travel is what saved the day, and the only reason there's time travel is because there's a plague. If there's no plague, there's no time travel, so things are even worse. So therefore, you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. You can't have time out without X billions of people dying. And that quandary is so strong. But then when you throw in Olivia jumping from one person to another is so well done with the black eyes. It's so good visually. And to have Hannah save her son, because mothers do that. And the whole symmetry of, you saved my life, and now then I've saved you. And now then I feel, and I don't know how I'm going to find time, but I do know I need to rewatch. And like, when did Hannah know? Like in the earlier scene, she didn't know that he was going to be her son. And then so watching all this again and the idea that, and she really loved Cole's dad. But she had to leave because she was supposed to leave. Makes this even sadder. But she said, I was always watching. I saw you when you met your brother. I saw you when this happened. I saw you in that. And the scene where they're all sitting there and Katrina, I'm going to die of radiation poisoning. And I've got to leap back, Hannah, to sacrifice myself to save you. And Cole, who doesn't know what he's going to do, he knows all this is on him, and somehow he may have to sacrifice himself. But we've got 1 minute more. You don't have to do now. We have a time machine, so whenever we need to go, we can go back to where we know. So let's sit by the fire, drink our drinks, and just be a grandmother, a mother, and a son for 1 minute more. Just broke my heart.
Yeah.
And I said,
I'm getting choked up right now.
How beautiful, and how this show, as many people who've watched it have told us, we are going to love it because it's as well done of wrapping up time loops as you can do. I do not know where they're going to go these last 2 episodes, but I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Karen.
Yeah. I'm honestly so broken up about those relationships between the 3 of them. And I also meant to mention that I appreciate how Jones and Deacon talk to each other, where they realized that they were probably going to have to die in order for the mission to succeed. And it's also escalating. Their initial thought was, we got to kill one person to save billions. And now it's, we got to kill billions to save everyone. I just feel like that escalation, Cassie is having a hard time about it, as we saw that she's very torn about releasing the plague. But then she realizes, yeah, if I don't do it, then nothing, it'll be all for naught. And that she's talking to the tall man who we talked about in those last few episodes. His father said, you'll understand. And for a minute we thought maybe, yeah, she's going to be on that side of things. Now we see her back in character where she's doing things for the good of the world, and that we see a payoff when she was saying good things happen from bad things, and that gets reinforced to her as well. And then there was some Crazy Town Banana Pants action with Jennifer and her writing of all of the symbols. I like that her old self and her new self kind of conspired to get that done. And they think that it's all of them jumping, and then the realization right at the end of the episode that Cole, it's just Cole's time jumps. And that if we eliminate all of Cole's time jumps, everything falls into place, which means the demon is Cole. And that kind of realization is like a dunk realization there right near the end. And then the fact that Olivia is pressing the button on the paradox, it really ended on this kind of vibrating level of storyline. And you get the urgency that you're hoping it's done in a way where you feel like you're galloping through the last 2 episodes, where you really want it to be fast paced and chock full of information. And these episodes, I swear, these 4 episodes, I think, were the highlight for me of the entire series. They were some amazing episodes, but Die Glocke, I thought, was interesting. And then 1 minute more just wrecked me. And Demons, we get the whole Deacon thing with him. And, just an amazing show. I'm so glad we watched it.
And they've done such a good job of building up everything. Just one plot line at a time. And I just would not have seen all this coming.
Right?
In fact, we talked just a few episodes. Okay, who's going to be Cole's mother? And did any of us pick?
Nope.
Okay.
No, it's so incongruous because of her age, and it's just something we wouldn't have in our mind. But
but
comes
when
with
it
time
happens,
travel.
yeah, but when it happens, it totally makes sense.
It clicks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Surprising but inevitable.
Yeah.
It's the way the best stories end, and that's definitely done here.
And it's more finding out that Jones is his grandmother that's impactful. I think Hannah's great as his mother, but that has long-lasting repercussions.
Because now every time you watch, if you rewatch the show, you're going to know right off the bat that's his grandmother. Like
right, exactly.
Had a whole totally different flavor to those scenes.
And we've always mentioned that it felt like she had a special place in her heart for him, and we wondered why.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
especially given how crusty she was.
Yeah.
And she made unknown, but I think there was some where mothers say that they just knew it was their child when they looked at them. They get that kind of bond.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The one thing I was really waiting for was the scene with future Cole meeting present Cole, which we haven't got yet. So I assume that now maybe we won't even get that till the very last episode.
Yeah.
But that again is going to make that scene seem totally different. And Cole's mindset, like future Cole, let's just go off
future
of that scene.
a-hole.
Future a-hole, yeah.
Which I love that, right?
Yeah, he's been put through the ringer. And now with this Hannah revelation and her passing, when he goes into that lobby to talk to his younger version, my God, what's going through his head at that? Like that scene could be like the last scene before he makes his final big play. Like that, and so that's going to be so powerful to see that.
Yeah, and we had no idea, no clue when we saw that scene from young Cole's perspective, how much he was going to have to go through before.
And where's Hannah's head? No, not Hannah. Cassie's head at the in that scene as well. When she comes out afterwards, because she mentions there's another way out, and he says no way. So we still have to find out what that's all about. But the setup for these final 2 episodes now is somehow Cole has to close the loop. If he's removing himself, if he has to remove himself from all those jumps, like how far is that going to go? Is he going to become totally removed from the timeline altogether? I don't know how that's going to play out. Like, and it's got that grandfather paradox thing set up too, because if he undoes all that things, how can his younger version do those things if he's undone them all? I'm going to be very curious to see how the show handles that. And yeah, Cole's in a totally different place now because he's lost so much. Cassie's come around, like you mentioned earlier, Karen, and she's back to where she was at the beginning, I think, but not totally. I think she's
more
a little
jaded.
Yeah, she's more jaded, and she's pretty good at hand-to-hand combat now too. So there's that as well. So,
well, and Cole has said that he feels that he has seen that he ends up like almost on a beach somewhere, and he feels happy. And he said, I don't think I could be that way if you weren't in my life. And she's, that's just you. That's just wish fulfillment. Right. I like to think, though, that it is that somehow through all this splintering, he has gotten an idea of the future. And is there an individual red forest just for them and the rest of the world goes on their own? Did either one of you watch the show Travelers?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Travelers had a really nice ending where a couple you wanted to get together, they implied that they did at the very end. And so I don't know, I could see this where somehow if everything's fixed, a non-pandemic Cole runs into a non-pandemic Cassie. I don't know. I am really looking forward to this 2-hour movie. Which is what we get the feeling it is.
Now, the only thing is, how would they run into each other? She would be older than him, quite a few years older.
Which is a little bit like 1963, right? That
exactly.
Stephen King book,
22, Yeah, that's true. Sure. Where his true love was in a nursing home at the end of
something like that. Yeah. And I still think we're going to get payoff for the knife, Deacon's knife. There has to be a payoff.
I think so too. That it seems like that he was setting up something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's going to come back for it. So how, I don't
Oh,
know.
let's hope so.
How?
Yeah,
I hope so.
And Ramsey, I want to know if what's going to go on
Right.
with him too.
I agree.
It's been so long.
But if everything's reset, then
Yeah.
who are we going to
Yeah.
see back?
So, in summary, these 4 episodes really reaffirmed my feelings for the series. The previous 4, maybe the show's running out of steam. It's good that it's into its last season, but these 4 episodes just really just blew me away emotionally, and I cannot wait to see the finale now. So,
Yep, gonna be today.
Yeah. So that's it.
It's one of those where you, just as my final thought, it's one of those where you can't wait for it to end because you know something good is coming, but you also don't want it to end.
All the best stories have a good ending or
Yeah.
an ending. Yeah. Thank you for doing that, Karen. I should go around the table. So, do you have any other further final thoughts?
I'm good. I
You're
talk
good?
too much anyway. So
that's what podcasts are for.
Yeah, exactly.
Jesse.
Yeah, I just have loved this series. I say what I've said many times. How did I miss this the first time it was on? This has been just a joy. I am really glad we've done this. So yeah, I'm just excited that we get to finish it up, and next week we get to talk about it.
Absolutely. All righty. With that, I think our tethers are starting to stretch out beyond their ability to maintain this timeline together.
And our injections have broken.
That's right.
Yes.
With that, Karen, where can people find you on the interwebs?
I am at Eleveria on the various social medias, Aleveria, and there's a link in my Twitter bio to my blog, and the landing page has a lot of good links and some interesting information.
All right. And our king of podcasting in terms of hours, Jesse, where can people find you?
You can find me at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter, aka X. Please go to iTunes, rate and review the podcast. Same thing, go to our YouTube channel, rate, subscribe, and give us some comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know where you want to go next. We have a couple of ideas that we're tossing around, but we'd love to hear what you guys wouldn't mind hearing us discuss.
And I can be found on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, where you'll find this podcast, part of our JKL Media umbrella. And as well, we're doing Babylon 5 podcasts. I have some Stephen King podcasts and some writers podcasts there as well. On Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma. How long that's going to last, I have no idea, but we'll see how it goes. And with that, it's time to say goodbye to all. And I want to thank my co-hosts for another fantastic conversation. And with that, let's say bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And scene.